Hi, everybody. This is Caitlin Albright here today with Davana Robedee. She is the program director at the Schweinfurth, and she is also an artist herself. Welcome, Davana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here today. So why don't you give us a little introduction and tell us about your background in the arts?
Well, I've actually been thinking about my background a little bit lately, and I do have one experience in the early parts of my arts education that's pretty relevant to what's going on now. When I graduated high school, I wanted to pursue a career in the arts. I got accepted into the University of New Orleans, and I was very excited to leave my small town. I packed absolutely everything I owned and moved into the dorms at UNO. I literally took everything. I was like, I'm living here in New Orleans now. I'm not going back. I'm going to make art and be here. And I went to classes for 5 days. It was a Friday. I packed 2 changes of clothes plus what I was wearing. And I'm walking out the door of my dorm. And my roommate, whose name I don't remember, says, "Oh, there's a storm in the Gulf." And I'm like, see you Monday. And I never saw her again. And I wasn't able to return to my dorm for 6, 7 months because my campus got wiped off the face of the earth by Hurricane Katrina.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I really sympathize with all of the seniors and the people who are just trying to start their lives or are in a phase of transition during this time because I had a similar experience. And when I did, I eventually became a displaced student at the university I then graduated from. And when I returned, I still had those 3 changes of clothes for 6 months. I had nothing, and I was returning to school with classmates who also had nothing. Some of my classmates spent a week on their roofs. Literally, their entire towns were gone off the face of the map. Students returned to school because they didn't have homes to return to. So they were staying in the dorms with nothing. And it was a very intense collective experience. It completely changed the course of my life. I didn't move to New Orleans. I ended up staying at that university. I got a different type of degree. I would have gotten a BFA in New Orleans. Instead, I got a BA. It ended up being fortunate for me. But what I want to say to any teenagers who are listening to this who might be in a position of transition, who might be affected, yes, this will affect the rest of your life. Yes, it can change the course of your life. But it's not the end. And, cities rebuild, people change, you will change. And if you're clever and you're hardworking, you can make a bad experience work for you. You can move on. So just that was, one part of my background I've been thinking on a lot lately for all of the seniors now who are missing graduation, who are missing major events in your life. It can be difficult, but it can drive you and it can give you passion and it can give you perspective. And life seems to do that, especially in the arts when you need to be quick on your feet and think fast and be flexible and adapt. And I learned those lessons early on, and it has helped me throughout the rest of my career.
That is a fantastic perspective to share too, because I think so many people are feeling like they've never been through anything like this. And for some people, this may very well be their first experience in dealing with such an enormous and widespread type of crisis. But for somebody who has been through not the same situation, but similar feelings and this general sense of uneasiness and upheaval, you can come out on the other side of this with a different type of perspective than somebody going through it all for the first time right now. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, as an artist or if you're pursuing a career in the arts, if you really early on adapt the stance that you will grow where you're planted, no matter where you end up, you need to get in the mindset of I can flourish here, regardless of whether it's difficult. It's not an easy career path. I will say that it's a difficult career path if you're wanting to make art, you're wanting to work even in art admin. There are contemporaries of mine, colleagues of mine, who are doing the same type of work, but for corporations or in industry, who work as much as I do, or less, make way more money than I do. You don't get into this for an easy path. You get into this because you're passionate. And if you're passionate, you can put down roots, you can sow seeds, you can grow, and you can flourish. And I find that artist types tend to thrive in tricky situations. That's when we really can come out and shine. That's when we really can come out and show the world that, you know, we have a lot of value in times of trouble. And I found that again and again throughout my career as an artist. To finish up the story about my background, I ended up staying at the university I was at. I got a BA, which is a more well-rounded degree. There's some differences. I took a lot of literature classes. I got a minor in writing, which helped me out so much for the rest of my career. I'm very glad I did that. And I got my undergraduate degree in painting. I took a year off in between. I did some artist in residencies. I waited tables for a long time to fund my bills in between, you know, making art and working. I worked all through college. All of those things really became fruitful parts of my career. Like, you have to be adaptable. You have to grab an odd job. You might have to wait tables in between making and, you know, going different places. Every artist I know has this background story of working many, many jobs and being flexible so that you can continue your practice. And after I got pretty exhausted with that for a bit, I went on to Syracuse University, where I got my master's in fine arts and sculpture. And so that's sort of my educational background there. I don't have the traditional arts admin background, but what I do have is a lot of background experience in my other jobs and in the other parts of my career that lend itself for a skill set that's pretty diverse. I taught. I was an adjunct professor at Syracuse in different places. I designed online courses. I taught in elementary schools. I worked in a hospital for several years doing admin work. And all of those things can create a skill set. And you have to know how to apply those to different situations in your life. And that's sort of how I ended up where I am today, is by using the skills I have.
And that's fantastic too, because in our Teen Council program, we talk so much about how all these different types of experiences, whether you're waiting tables, whether you're working in arts admin, you know, whatever you're doing to support yourself while you're pursuing these passions, all of it leads you to develop some sort of skill set. And they may not even seem directly relevant to the arts and what you want to do at first, but I think they truly are, because you don't know what kinds of skills and experiences you're picking up along the way. And if you're creative and you can be versatile, you can apply those same skills to so many different situations. So I'm really glad to hear you talk about that, because I stress that to my students as well. And it's so great to hear from another person who can really confirm that and who has been through it as well.
Yeah, and the one major advice I will give to other artists or who are struggling, especially someone who comes, or anyone who comes from a background that's very poor, like I grew up very poor, I survived only on scholarships, like I said, I worked throughout it all, is you get this sense of imposter syndrome, like, this isn't for me, I can't be here, there are other people who are smarter and better and X, Y, Z and more deserving. And they tend not to apply for the difficult things. They tend to not go for stuff they're absolutely deserving of. And at some point, you just have to let that go. And it's never going to quite go away. Every artist I know at every level of their career still have that. Like, I have friends who are really killing it, represented by like top-notch galleries. And they go into these spaces and think, I don't belong. Well, you do belong. The people who belong there are the people who are there. And so you put yourself in the spaces you want to be in and just believe that you belong there. Apply for jobs you might not be fully qualified, and get that interview and explain to them why you're the right person. Because that's how you have to navigate. And an arts background prepares you uniquely for this. And
It certainly does.
it's part of discovering yourself and the strengths within yourself.
That's perfect. I mean, I couldn't have said that better myself. And the imposter syndrome is a very real thing. So many people, like you said, across the board, whether you grew up in a super affluent community where you were exposed to arts and culture all the time, you're going to have that same little voice in the back of your head too, a lot of times saying, oh, I'm not cut out for this or not qualified for that. But you apply anyway, and you keep putting yourself out there, because you're going to hear no a lot in the arts. And it doesn't really matter where you came from. You're going to hear it, and you got to get used to hearing it, and you have to keep going if this is something that you really want to pursue. But can you tell us a little bit about what you do currently as an employee at the Schweinfurth? I know you guys have a lot of fantastic programs that you're running there. We've talked about it a little bit in the past too. Can you share some light on what it's like?
Yeah, so to give a little bit of background about the Schweinfurt is not a museum. We are an art center, so it's a little different. We don't have a permanent collection, and we do have gallery space. We have three galleries, but two main large galleries. When you come into the building, what the visitor normally sees is our gallery spaces. What they don't see is that 2/3 of our building is dedicated to making art. I feel very fortunate to be there. I think actually it's a great partnership with me as a working artist, because some of the most exciting things for me are to provide opportunities for artists, not just to show their work, but to make their work. And one good memory I have is one of our big opening exhibits for our quilt shows, one of our biggest events of the year. We have people in fancy attire. We have this big opening, we have a fancy dinner, we have a lecture, and you have everyone in their like nice gallery clothes. And at the same time, we're running workshops by a lot of the artists who actually might even be in the exhibit, are either learning or teaching or in our studio spaces at the same time. So during this opening, we have students who are in their studio clothes, like dirty, filthy, covered in blue because they were dyeing with indigo, and their hands were stained blue, and they're up in the middle of this whole mix. So that's the most excited I get when I get to work at the Art Center, is to provide those really direct connections, because art is not just about looking, it's about making, creating, and we really look at the ways we can provide that. When I'm choosing artists for exhibitions as well, we really look at, can they teach? Do they have like artwork we can show? And then how can we program around that? So as program director, I organize, we're a very small staff. So I help with exhibits, curating and installing, and choosing the artists with my executive director, Donna Lamb. We work together on that. And then I run our quilting conference, Quilting by the Lake, and we hire faculty from all over the world. They come to Syracuse, New York at Onondaga Community College and teach workshops. We have people from like South Africa, Australia, UK. They all fly in, and we do fiber and textile workshops. I run Studio Schweinfurth, which is another high-end workshop program where we do 2 and 3 day classes at the Schweinfurth. And then we have adult classes, kids classes, everything, and all of the events and programs that go around being in the museum. I really see an art center as an educational space. So yes, we show art, but how do we provide programs around that experience to connect people to the work? It's one thing to see a piece, but it's another to learn how it's made. Mm-hmm. And you don't walk away, saying, oh, I'm going to take that home and do it myself. I get really excited because it connects the individual to the process in a way that it creates value, so that they realize like, oh, that's actually difficult to do, or oh, that's a complex process. You can see it as a finished work on the wall, but do you understand what goes into making a piece, and that's what I really like to focus on.
Yeah, I think there's so much value in that, and it really does bring a whole new appreciation for people who may know nothing about the process when they're able to get that kind of in-depth experience with it. And we try to do the same thing at the Everson too. And I know the struggle of being a small staff and running all of these different programs, but I'm sure that's where those waitressing skills really come in handy when you have to multitask. So things really do kind of come full circle when you know how to really apply those practical skills to whatever it is that you're taking on.
Yes, and in some ways that is the greatest challenge in my job, but also the thing I love the most.
Mm-hmm.
My typical day coming into the art center can vary anywhere from I need to get downstairs and help set up because we have a class coming in and I need to meet with a teacher, or I could literally be creating databases in a program called Access, which is painfully boring, but I'm good at. And so it goes from, sending a lot of emails, making a lot of phone calls, making budget spreadsheets, writing grants, doing research, curating exhibits, researching artists, to, having a hammer in my hand and installing an artwork. It really varies a lot. I mean, it wouldn't be uncommon to see me sweeping up, in the studio. We really do everything, and that's difficult, but it's also the perk. It's never boring. It's never boring.
I can definitely attest to that. And I think it's really a testament too to your dedication to the arts, no matter what role you find yourself in. And that's very inspiring, not just to me, but I think to so many of our younger viewers who are listening in and wondering, what could a degree in the arts or a career in the arts mean for me? And there's so much movement, I think, within that career. And there's so many different ways in which you can, apply these kinds of skills and find yourself connecting with people in the community and other artists. So it's so nice to have you on and hear you talk about that. But I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. It was wonderful hearing from you, and you shared so much valuable insight and wisdom that I think will be extremely helpful to our younger audiences who are considering going into the arts. So thank you, Davana. We really appreciate your time, and hope to see you in person again soon.
Yeah.